The roar of applause drowned in the crack of splitting wood. One moment, Anna Veresova soared above the stage of the Imperial Theater, her white tulle catching the gaslight like wings of morning mist. The next, the wooden platform beneath her feet gave way with a sound she would hear in nightmares for years to come. She fell. 3 meters, an eternity compressed into a single heartbeat. The stage rushed up to meet her. Her right leg twisted beneath her body at an angle God never intended. The snap of bone cut through the orchestra's final chord like a gunshot through silk. Anna screamed. The sound tore from her throat, raw and animal, silencing the 1,000 souls who had risen to their feet in the gilded hall. The crimson curtain crashed down, its velvet weight stirring the dust of 100 performances as it swallowed her broken form from view. Behind the fallen fabric, chaos erupted. Stagehands shouted, a soprano fainted, and somewhere in the wings, Anna caught a flash of pale blue, the color of Nadine Lanskaya's costume, disappearing into the shadows. Then the pain swallowed everything. 3 months dissolved in a haze of carbolic acid and laudanum. The hospital walls were the color of old bones. Anna lay in a narrow bed, her leg encased in plaster and steel, watching winter frost creep across the window glass like lace made of ice. The smell of illness clung to everything: her skin, her hair, her fading dreams. Dr. Hoffman stood at the foot of her bed, his spectacles reflecting the gray light. "The bone has healed, Madame Veresova," he said, his voice careful as a man walking on frozen river. "But the damage to the tendons is permanent. I'm afraid your dancing days are finished." The words fell like stones into still water. "You are mistaken," Anna whispered. "I will dance again. I must." "I am truly sorry." He would not meet her eyes. He gathered his papers and retreated, leaving behind only the rustle of his coat and the ghost of pity. The door had barely closed when it opened again. Nadine Lanskaya swept in like a summer storm, her arms full of hothouse roses, their crimson petals impossibly bright against the gray room. Her perfume, lily of the valley mixed with something sharper, cut through the hospital stench. "Dearest Anna," she breathed, settling into the chair beside the bed with a whisper of silk. "I came the moment they allowed visitors. The entire company sends their love." "We have been simply devastated." "How kind," Anna managed. Her throat felt lined with sand. The accident was ghastly, simply ghastly. Nadine arranged her roses on the nightstand, her movements precise as choreography. That horrid platform. The stagehands swear they checked it, but clearly someone was negligent. Director Karinin is beside himself. Is he? Oh, yes. He canceled 3 performances out of respect. Nadine's hand found Anna's, her fingers cool and smooth. "The papers are calling it a tragedy, the loss of the Northern Swan." Loss, as if Anna were already dead. "But you must focus on healing," Nadine continued, her voice dripping honey. "Perhaps when you recover, there will be teaching positions, coaching young dancers, something suitable." Suitable for a cripple. Anna turned her head toward the mirror hanging on the opposite wall. In its reflection, she caught something that made her blood turn to winter. Nadine was smiling, not the sympathetic smile she wore like a mask, but a small, private smile, the smile of a cat who has cornered a wounded bird. Their eyes met in the glass. Nadine's expression flickered, then smoothed into concern. Rest now, darling. I will visit again soon. The roses she left behind smelled of funerals. 6 months later, Anna stood in a room that smelled of boiled cabbage and despair. The boarding house on Kolominsky Street was a far cry from her former apartments near the Fontanka. The wallpaper peeled in long strips, revealing older patterns beneath. The single window looked out on a courtyard where chickens scratched in the mud. The bed sagged in the middle like a broken spine. Anna leaned on the wall for support, her right leg aching with the dull throb that never quite faded. The cane she had purchased with her last rubles stood propped against the door. She had not yet learned to use it without shame. On the rickety table, a newspaper lay open. Nadine Lanskaya's face smiled from the society pages, her eyes bright with triumph. "New Prima conquers Petersburg," the headline declared. "Lanskaya dazzles in Giselle." Giselle. Anna's role. Anna's triumph, stolen and repackaged for another woman's glory. Madame Veresova. The landlady's voice scraped through the thin door. "You are 2 weeks behind. I cannot run a charity house." "I will have your money tomorrow," Anna called back, though she had no idea how. "Tomorrow, not 1 day more." Footsteps retreated down the creaking stairs. Anna looked at the newspaper again, at Nadine's smile, at the photograph of Director Karenin standing beside her, his hand on her shoulder, both of them radiant with success. Something cold and hard crystallized in Anna's chest. She thought of the platform that had given way beneath her feet, of the stagehands who swore they had checked it, of the flash of pale blue disappearing into the wings, of Nadine's smile in the hospital mirror. From somewhere in the building came the tap, tap, tap of a walking cane. An old man, living 2 floors above, making his slow journey to the stairs. The sound was rhythmic, relentless, like a heartbeat, like a clock counting down. Anna realized, with a clarity that cut through her grief like a blade, that this sound would now be her music, the percussion of her diminished life. She looked down at her ruined leg, at the newspaper, at the walls of her prison. Then she picked up her cane. A knock came at the door, sharp, unexpected. Anna opened it to find a man in a black coat, snow melting on his shoulders, his face half hidden by the upturned collar. He extended a gloved hand. In it was an envelope, thick and cream-colored, sealed with no insignia. "What is this?" Anna demanded. "The truth, Madame Veresova." He pressed the envelope into her hands and turned to leave. "Wait. Who sent you? Who are you?" He paused at the top of the stairs, his profile sharp against the gaslight. "Someone who knows what Director Karenin and Mademoiselle Lanskaya did to you. Someone who believes the scales of justice have been unbalanced long enough." Then he was gone, his footsteps fading into the darkness below. Anna tore open the envelope with trembling fingers. Inside was a letter. The handwriting was hurried, almost frantic, the ink blotted in places as if the writer's hand had shaken. "The platform has been weakened as you instructed. After the premiere, it will be my turn to shine. N." The date at the top was 1 day before Anna's fall. Beneath the letter, in different handwriting, a single line had been added. "This is what destroyed your life. Do you want to know the whole truth?" Anna read the words once, twice, 3 times. The room seemed to tilt around her. The cold that had settled in her chest spread outward, freezing her veins, her heart, her very soul. Not an accident. Never an accident. She looked at the newspaper one final time, at Nadine's triumphant smile, at Karenin's proprietary hand. Then Anna Veresova, the broken swan of Petersburg, threw the paper into the dying fire and watched it burn. Her hands no longer trembled. The letter burned in Anna's hands like a living coal. She read it again by the light of a single tallow candle, her fingers tracing the frantic loops of Nadine's handwriting. The platform has been weakened, as you instructed. After the premiere, it will be my turn to shine. The words blurred through sudden tears, then sharpened into focus as rage dried her eyes. 7 months of believing herself cursed by fate. 7 months of thinking God had abandoned her. And all along, it had been the work of human hands. Hands she had trusted. Hands that had clasped hers in rehearsal halls and dressing rooms. The knock came again, softer this time. Anna seized her cane and crossed the room, her damaged leg protesting each step. She opened the door to find the same man from before, snow still dusting his dark shoulders like powdered sugar on mourning cloth. "You read it?" he said. It was not a question. "Who are you?" "Someone with resources, someone with patience." He paused, studying her face in the flickering light. "Someone who despises Victor Karenin even more than you do." "That seems unlikely." A ghost of a smile crossed his angular features. "May I come in, Madame Veresova? The walls in establishments like this tend to have many ears." Anna hesitated. Every instinct warned her against inviting a stranger into her room, but the letter in her hand was proof that her instincts had failed her before. She had trusted Nadine. She had trusted Karenin. Both had tried to kill her. What worse could this dark stranger do? She stepped aside. He entered with the quiet grace of a man accustomed to shadows. His eyes swept the cramped room without judgment, noting the bare walls, the sagging bed, the empty grate. "My name is Dmitri Severin," he said, removing his gloves one finger at a time. "Once I was a theater critic for the Petersburg Gazette. Now I am something considerably more useful." "And what is that?" "A man with money, information, and a very long memory." He produced a silver case from his coat pocket, extracted a thin cigarette, but did not light it. Instead, he turned it between his fingers like a tiny baton. "Director Karenin has been destroying careers for 15 years, Madame Veresova. Yours is simply the latest. He takes bribes. He sells leading roles to the highest bidder. He eliminates anyone who threatens his profits." "And Nadine?" "An eager accomplice." Severin's voice hardened. "She wanted your position. He wanted your silence. They struck a bargain. The platform was sabotaged the night before your premiere. A stagehand named Volkov loosened the supports. He died 6 weeks later in a tavern brawl. Very convenient." Anna sank onto the edge of her bed. The springs groaned beneath her weight. "Why tell me this?" she asked. "What do you want from me?" Severin met her gaze. In the candlelight, she noticed a thin scar running along his right hand, from wrist to knuckle, white against his pale skin. "I want justice." He tucked the unlit cigarette back into its case. "My sister Irina was a dancer at the Imperial Theater. 8 years ago, Karenin drove her from the company. He spread rumors about her, destroyed her reputation. She threw herself into the Neva that January. The words hung in the cold air between them. "I am sorry," Anna whispered. "So am I. Every day." Severin moved to the frost-covered window, his breath misting the glass. "I have spent years gathering evidence against Karenin. Financial records, letters, testimonies from stagehands too frightened to speak publicly. But evidence alone will not satisfy me." "What will?" He turned back to face her. "Complete destruction. Public humiliation. I want him ruined, Madame Veresova. Not just imprisoned, but shamed. I want Petersburg to see him for the monster he is." "And you need me for this?" "I need a partner. Someone with a face Karenin will not recognize. Someone with righteous fury and nothing left to lose." He paused. "Someone willing to become a ghost." Anna looked down at her cane, at her twisted leg, at the ruin of everything she had once been. "Anna Veresova is already dead," she said quietly. "The papers have declared it so." "Then let us give her a proper burial." The old cemetery sprawled beneath a pearl-colored sky, its headstones rising from the snow like broken teeth. Anna stood before her mother's grave, the cold seeping through her thin boots, her cane sinking into the frozen ground with each step. Elena Veresova, beloved mother, taken too soon. The inscription was nearly worn away by time and weather. Anna had not visited since before her fall. Shame had kept her away. Shame and the terrible fear that her mother's spirit might see what she had become. "I failed you, Mama," she whispered. "You gave everything for my training. You died believing I would bring glory to our name. And look at me now." The wind stirred the barren branches above her head, sending a shower of ice crystals dancing through the gray air. "But I will not fail you again." Behind her, Severin waited by the cemetery gates, a dark figure against the white landscape. He had given her space for this moment, understanding without being told that she needed to make her peace with the past before she could embrace the future. Anna reached into her coat and withdrew a single ballet slipper. Pink satin, worn soft by countless rehearsals, stained with rosin and sweat. She had kept it for 7 months, sleeping with it beneath her pillow, clinging to it like a rosary. Now she placed it on her mother's grave. "They will dance to my music, Mama. Every last one of them." The walk back to the gates was easier than the walk in. Her legs still ached, her heart still grieved. But something had shifted inside her. The grief had crystallized into something harder, sharper, more useful. Severin straightened as she approached, his eyes searching her face. "Well?" "Tell me about the money," Anna said. "Tell me about your plan." They walked together through the snow-covered streets, two shadows among many, while he explained. He had built a fortune through careful investment and shrewd speculation. He had connections in banking houses across Europe. He could create identities, forge documents, move funds without trace. "The Imperial Theater is drowning in debt," he said as they crossed a bridge over a frozen canal. "Karenin has been embezzling for years. One substantial investor could purchase controlling interest in the company without anyone knowing who truly holds the strings." "And that investor would be me?" "A version of you. A wealthy widow named Vorontsova, recently returned from Paris, passionate about ballet, generous with her fortune, and completely unknown to anyone in Petersburg. "A phantom," Anna murmured. "Precisely." They stopped at the corner where their paths would diverge. Gas lamps flickered to life along the street, their glow soft as candlelight against the gathering dusk. "It will take time," Severin warned. "Years, perhaps. You will need to transform yourself completely. Voice, bearing, mannerisms. When you return to that theater, not a soul must suspect who you truly are." "How long?" 5 years, perhaps more. 5 years. An eternity to a woman who had once measured time in pirouettes and curtain calls. But what was time to a ghost? "There is one thing I must know," Anna said, studying his angular face. "Why do you help me? You speak of justice for your sister, but you could pursue Karenin alone. Why share your resources with a stranger?" Severin was quiet for a long moment. The scar on his hand seemed to glow in the lamplight. "Because I have watched you, Madame Vereshva, since your fall. I have seen you sell your jewelry piece by piece. I have seen you refuse charity from former colleagues. I have seen you walk on that broken leg when any other woman would have surrendered to despair." He met her eyes. "Karenin believes he killed you. But here you stand, unbowed, unbroken. That is why." He reached into his coat and withdrew something dark and delicate, a black veil, fine as spider silk, heavy as judgment. "Anna Vereshova died 7 months ago," he said, placing it in her hands. "She fell on a sabotaged stage and never rose again. But the woman who takes her place will bring an empire to its knees." Anna held the veil up to the fading light. Through its dark mesh, the world looked different, softer, safer, full of possibility. "Vorontsova," she said, trying the name. It felt foreign on her tongue, foreign and right. "Your new life begins now. I have purchased a small apartment near Haymarket Square. There are clothes waiting for you, books, everything you need to become someone else." He offered his arm. After a moment, she took it, her cane tapping against the cobblestones as they walked into the gathering night. "One more question," she said as they reached a plain black carriage waiting at the curb. "Ask it." "Your sister, what was her name?" Severin paused, his hand on the carriage door. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "Irina. She danced Giselle the season before you. It was her signature role. Giselle. The role Anna had been performing when she fell. The role Nadine had stolen. The same role, the same fate. The same monster behind the curtain." Anna climbed into the carriage without another word. But as the horses began to move, she looked back through the small rear window at the cemetery gates disappearing into the snow. She was no longer alone in her vengeance. That made it either more righteous or far more dangerous. 5 years had turned Anna Vereshova into a stranger. She stood before the gilt-framed mirror in her private chambers on the English embankment, studying the woman who gazed back at her. The reflection wore black silk that whispered against the parquet floor with each movement. A silver cane with a swan-shaped handle rested against her hip. Her hair, once worn loose for performances, was now swept into a severe chignon that added years to her face. But it was the eyes that had changed most. Where once they had sparkled with joy at every curtain call, Now they held the cold patience of a winter river waiting to crack beneath unwary feet. "The dressmaker has arrived, Madame Vorontsova." Anna turned to find her maid Katya hovering in the doorway. The girl had been hired 6 months ago and had never seen her mistress without the heavy black veil. She believed her employer to be a wealthy widow, disfigured by some tragedy in Paris, too proud to show her ruined face. Let her believe it. Let them all believe it. "Send her in," Anna said, noting with satisfaction how her voice had deepened over the years. Severin had hired voice coaches, elocution masters, experts in aristocratic bearing. The woman who spoke now bore no resemblance to the bright soprano who had once charmed Petersburg's salons. The dressmaker entered with an armful of fabric samples, her eyes carefully averted from the veiled figure by the window. "I have brought the selections you requested, madame. The black crepe from Lyon, the Venetian lace, the mourning silk with jet beading." Anna ran her gloved fingers across each sample. The textures spoke to her differently now. She had learned to read the world through touch, through scent, through the spaces between words. The cold kiss of silk lining, the dusty weight of velvet, the sharp edges of crystal beading that could catch light like frozen tears. "This one," she said, selecting a fabric dark as a moonless night. "And add the jet beading to the bodice. I wish to shine like a black diamond." "For the theater gala, madame?" "For my triumphant return to society." The fitting took an hour. Anna stood motionless as pins pricked and fabric draped, her mind wandering through the maze of plans she and Severin had constructed. Every debt purchased, every ally cultivated, every secret uncovered and filed away for future use. When the dressmaker finally departed, Anna dismissed Katya and crossed to her writing desk. From a hidden drawer, she withdrew a leather portfolio thick with documents. The Imperial Theater's financial records, names of creditors, amounts owed. A web of corruption so vast it had taken 3 years just to map its edges. And at the center of that web, Victor Karenin, still believing himself untouchable. The banking house of Volkov & Sons occupied a gray stone building near the Nevsky Prospect, its windows reflecting the afternoon sky like blind eyes. Anna arrived in a closed carriage, her veil lowered, her silver cane announcing each step as she crossed the marble foyer. "Madame Vorontsova," the senior partner rose from behind a mahogany desk the size of a small boat. "We are honored by your visit." "The honor is mine, Mr. Volkov." Anna settled into the offered chair, arranging her skirts with practiced grace. "I trust you have prepared the documents I requested." "Indeed, madame. The theater acquisition papers await only your signature." 3 other men sat around the conference table, their faces carefully neutral, their eyes hungry with curiosity. Who was this mysterious widow who had appeared from nowhere 5 months ago with a fortune that seemed bottomless? Anna felt their scrutiny like heat from a furnace. Let them look. Let them wonder. "Gentlemen," she began, her voice steady as stone, "I have reviewed the Imperial Theater's accounts. The debts are considerable, but I believe in the redemptive power of art." "Very admirable, madame." "Art and profit." She allowed a thin smile to touch her lips beneath the veil. "I understand Director Karenin has been seeking investors for some time." "I am prepared to become the theater's primary patron. My conditions are simple. All major decisions must pass through me. All budgetary matters require my approval." The bankers exchanged glances. One of them, a gray-haired man named Melnikov, leaned forward with narrowed eyes. "Forgive me, Madame Vorontsova, but we know little of your background. Such a substantial investment requires a certain degree of trust." "Trust is earned through results, Mr. Melnikov." Anna met his gaze through the dark mesh of her veil. "I have references from banking houses in Paris, Vienna, and London. I have letters of credit that would satisfy the Tsar himself. What I do not have is patience for unnecessary delays." She rose, signaling the meeting's end. "The documents will be delivered to your residence by evening, madam." Volkov hurried to open the door for her. "Director Karenin will be most pleased." "I have no doubt." As she swept through the foyer, Anna caught Melnikov's reflection in a polished marble pillar. He was watching her with an expression she knew too well: suspicion. The carriage waited in the shadow of the building, its black lacquer gleaming like wet ink. Anna climbed inside to find Severin already seated, a newspaper spread across his lap. "The contracts are signed," she said, settling onto the leather seat. "I saw." His dark eyes studied her face through the veil. "You made quite an impression. The entire financial district will be buzzing about the mysterious Madame Vorontsova by nightfall." "Good. Let them buzz." The carriage lurched into motion, its wheels clattering against cobblestones. Through the small window, Anna watched Petersburg slide past, its palaces and bridges and frozen canals as familiar as her own heartbeat. "There may be a problem," Severin said quietly. "Melnikov. I noticed his interest. He is an old friend of Karenin's. They attended university together." "If anyone might recognize something familiar in your bearing, your voice, your movements, it would be someone who knew the old Anna Verasova." Anna's hand tightened on her cane. "Did Melnikov know me before?" "He attended your performances, several times." Severin folded the newspaper with precise movements. He wrote reviews for a society journal, called you the most promising dancer of your generation. The words struck like a slap. Once such praise would have made her soar. Now it only reminded her of everything she had lost. "Then I must be more careful around him." "Or we must find a way to neutralize his curiosity." The carriage turned onto the English embankment, approaching the grand house that Anna had made her fortress. Gas lamps flickered to life along the waterfront, their reflections dancing on the dark Neva like drowning stars. 5 years, Anna murmured, more to herself than to Severin. 5 years of preparation, 5 years of becoming someone else. "Are you having doubts?" "No." She turned to face him, her eyes bright behind the veil. "I am having hunger. Every day I wake and think of Nadine taking her bows in my place. Every night I dream of Karenin counting his blood money. I have been patient long enough." "Patience has brought us to the threshold of victory." "Then let us cross it." The carriage stopped before her door. A footman hurried to lower the steps, but before Anna could descend, Severin caught her wrist. "One more thing." He pressed a small envelope into her gloved hand. "This arrived today, from the theater." Anna opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a single card, edged in gold, inscribed with elegant calligraphy. "Imperial Theater Gala," it read, "celebrating the 7th anniversary of Madame Nadine Lanskaya as prima ballerina. All patrons cordially invited."
7 years. The exact span of Anna's exile, the exact measure of her suffering. She read the date. 3 weeks from now. "They are celebrating," she whispered. "They are dancing on your grave."
Anna looked up at the grand house before her, at the windows blazing with candlelight, at the servants waiting in the doorway. "Then it is time," she said, her voice cold as the wind off the Neva, "for a ghost to attend her own funeral." She stepped from the carriage, her silver cane striking the cobblestones with a sound like a heartbeat, like a promise, like a death knell tolling in the winter dark. Behind her, Severin remained in the shadows, his expression unreadable, but his scarred hand gripped the carriage door with white-knuckled intensity. He had waited 8 years for this moment. His sister's ghost still haunted his dreams. Soon, he told himself, very soon now. The game had finally begun. The Imperial Theater blazed like a jeweled crown against the winter night. Carriages lined the Teatralnia Square, disgorging passengers wrapped in furs and silks, their breath rising in silver clouds. Crystal chandeliers glowed through the tall windows, casting pools of golden light onto the snow-covered steps. The smell of expensive perfume mingled with wood smoke and horse sweat. Anna descended from her carriage, alone. The silver cane struck each step with deliberate precision. Her black gown absorbed the light like a wound in the glittering crowd. The veil transformed her face into shadow and mystery. Heads turned, whispers followed. Who is she? That must be the Vorontsova widow. They say she bought half the theater's debt. They say she never shows her face. Anna drank in the attention like wine. 7 years ago, she had climbed these same steps in white tulle, her heart singing with anticipation. Tonight, she climbed them in widow's weeds, her heart armored with ice. The foyer swallowed her in warmth and noise. Champagne glasses clinked. An orchestra played somewhere beyond the velvet curtains. The familiar smell of beeswax candles and theatrical grease paint wrapped around her like an old lover's embrace. "Madame Vorontsova." The voice was honey poured over broken glass. Anna turned to find Victor Karenin approaching through the crowd, his evening coat impeccable, his smile wide as a crocodile's. 7 years had thickened his waist and silvered his temples, but those dead fish eyes remained unchanged. She had to lock her knees to keep from trembling. "Director Karenin," she said, extending her gloved hand. "At last we meet in person." He bowed over her fingers, his lips hovering above the black silk. "The pleasure is entirely mine, madam. Your generosity has given new life to our humble institution." Humble. The word tasted like ash in Anna's mouth. This man had built his empire on broken bodies and shattered dreams, and he dared speak of humility. "I simply adore the ballet," she replied, her tone light as champagne bubbles. "Such tragedy, such beauty, such delicious suffering." Karenin's smile faltered for just a heartbeat. "Indeed. Shall I escort you to your box? We have prepared the best seat in the house for our most distinguished patron." "How thoughtful." She took his offered arm, feeling the muscles beneath his sleeve, suppressing the violent urge to drive her cane through his polished shoes. Patience, she reminded herself. The best revenge is served not cold, but frozen. The box overlooked the stage like a throne surveying its kingdom. Red velvet walls absorbed sound.
Crystal decanters sparkled on a side table. Fresh roses perfumed the air, their scent so thick Anna could taste it. "Tonight we celebrate our beloved Nadine Lanskaya," Karenin said, settling into the chair beside hers. 7 glorious years as prima ballerina. A remarkable achievement. "Remarkable indeed," Anna murmured. She gazed down at the stage where she had fallen, the very boards where her bones had shattered. "Tell me, director, what became of Lanskaya's predecessor?"
I seem to recall some tragedy. The question hung between them like smoke. Karenin's expression flickered. Surprise, then something darker, then careful neutrality. "Ah, yes. Anna Veresova. A terrible accident during a performance of Giselle. The poor creature never recovered."
"Did she survive?"
"After a fashion," he waved a dismissive hand. "She disappeared into obscurity. These artistic temperaments, you understand. They burn so brightly and then simply fade away."
"How sad."
"Indeed. But the theater must go on." The lights dimmed, the orchestra swelled, and onto the stage swept Nadine Lanskaya, her arms raised like white wings, her smile radiant as poisoned sunshine. Anna watched from behind her veil, cataloging every movement. Nadine's technique had declined. The arabesques lacked extension. The jumps showed hesitation. 7 years of unchallenged supremacy had made her lazy. She was a queen grown fat on easy victories. But she was still dangerous. Anna could see it in the sharpness of her movements, the predatory awareness that scanned even the darkest corners of the theater. "Magnificent, is she not?" Karenin leaned close, his breath warm and sour. "Our northern star, our irreplaceable jewel." "Irreplaceable," Anna agreed softly. "Until someone replaces her." The performance ended to thunderous applause. Nadine took bow after bow, her white gown pooling around her like spilled milk, roses raining at her feet. The same ritual that had once belonged to Anna. When the curtain finally fell, Karenin escorted his patron backstage. The narrow corridors smelled of sweat and rosin and old makeup. Stagehands pressed against walls to let them pass. Dancers scattered like frightened birds. Anna's cane tapped against the wooden floor. Each sound echoed off the walls, announcing her approach like a herald of doom. "The dressing rooms are just ahead," Karenin said. "I am certain Madame Lanskaya would be honored to meet her new patron." The prima's dressing room doors stood open, releasing a cloud of French perfume and cigarette smoke. Inside, Nadine reclined on a chaise longue, still in her costume, surrounded by flowers and admirers. 7 years had not been kind to her either, Anna noticed with savage satisfaction. Lines bracketed that painted mouth. Shadows lurked beneath those bright eyes. The neck that had once been a swan's graceful column now showed the first softening of age. "Director," Nadine rose with the careful grace of someone protecting aching joints. "You have brought our mysterious benefactress at last." "Madame Vorontsova," Karenin announced. "Our theater's guardian angel." "Angel," Nadine repeated, approaching with extended hands. "Or perhaps saint." Only a saint would be so generous with her fortune. Anna accepted the embrace, feeling Nadine's sharp bones beneath the costume's padding. Up close, the woman smelled of lily of the valley and something bitter underneath. Fear, perhaps, or desperation. "Your performance was extraordinary, Madame Lanskaya," Anna said. "Such passion, such technical precision. I found myself utterly transported." "You are too kind." "Not at all. I merely recognize excellence when I see it." Anna paused, letting the silence stretch. "It must require such dedication, such sacrifice, to maintain such standards for 7 entire years." Something flickered in Nadine's eyes. Recognition? Suspicion? Anna could not tell through the veil. "Sacrifice is the artist's burden," Nadine said slowly. "We give everything for our art." "Everything," Anna agreed. "And sometimes more than everything." She let the words linger, watching them land like drops of acid. "Forgive me," Nadine said, her smile growing brittle. "But your voice seems familiar. Have we met before?" "I think not. I have spent many years abroad." "Still, there is something about you. The way you hold your head, the timbre of your speech." "Many people have told me I seem familiar." Anna turned toward the door, her cape swirling behind her. "Perhaps I simply have one of those faces. Or perhaps you knew my ghost in another life." She departed before Nadine could respond, leaving her poisoned pleasantries to fester in the perfumed air. Karenin caught up with her in the corridor. "You made quite an impression, Madame Vorontsova." "I intended to." "Might I inquire about your plans for the theater, now that you hold such substantial financial interest?" Anna stopped walking. The corridor stretched empty before them, lit by guttering gas lamps that threw wild shadows on the painted walls. "I have many plans, Director Karenin." She turned to face him, her cane planted firmly between them. "Starting with a complete audit of the theater's accounts. I wish to understand exactly where my investment goes." His smile curdled. "An audit seems unnecessary. Our books are impeccable." "I am certain they are. But I have learned that impeccable books often hide impeccable lies." She leaned closer, close enough to see the sweat beading at his temple. "I will be reviewing everything, Director. Every contract, every payment, every decision made in this theater for the past 10 years. That is quite an undertaking. I am a patient woman." She left him standing in the shadow-filled corridor, his oily smile finally cracked, his dead eyes showing the first glimmer of genuine fear. Outside, the winter air hit her face like a benediction. Anna breathed deep, tasting snow and smoke and the faint sweetness of distant pine forests. Her carriage waited at the bottom of the steps, but before she could descend, a figure emerged from the shadows beside the theater entrance. Nadine, still in her costume, a shawl thrown hastily over her shoulders. "Madame Vorontsova." Her voice was breathless, urgent. "A moment of your time." "It is cold, Madame Lanskaya. You should be inside." "Please." Nadine's painted face looked ghastly in the gaslight. "I must speak with you about the new production. Karenin mentioned you would have approval over casting." "That is correct." "I wish you to know that I am utterly devoted to this theater. Whatever role you wish me to play, whatever demands you make, I will comply." Nadine grasped Anna's gloved hand. "I can be very useful, Madame, very loyal. I know how to eliminate obstacles." The irony was so perfect, Anna nearly laughed. "I appreciate your dedication,"
she said instead. "We will speak again soon." She pulled her hand free and descended to her carriage, but at the door she paused and looked back at the shivering figure on the steps. "One question, Madame Lenskaya. Do you ever dream of that night? The night Anna Veresova fell?" Even in the dim light, she could see Nadine's face drain of color. "Why would you ask such a thing?" "Curiosity." Anna climbed into the carriage. "Sleep well, madame." Through the small window, she watched Nadine standing frozen on the steps, the snow beginning to fall around her like a delicate white shroud. The game was no longer merely beginning. Now, it was truly underway. The audit lasted 3 weeks and exposed 7 years of systematic theft.
Anna sat in her study on the English embankment, surrounded by towers of ledgers and correspondence. The fireplace crackled beside her, throwing dancing shadows across the damning evidence spread across her desk. Outside, a February storm howled against the windows, rattling the glass like an impatient guest. "The numbers are staggering," Severin said, pacing before the fireplace. "Karenin has stolen nearly 200,000 rubles. False expenses, phantom suppliers, inflated contracts. The man has been bleeding the theater dry for a decade." "And the board knew?" "Some suspected. None dared speak. He has too many powerful friends." Anna lifted a sheaf of papers, her gloved fingers tracing the columns of figures. "What about this account? The one marked charitable donations?" "A fiction. The money went directly to Karenin's personal investments. He owns property in Moscow, shares in 3 shipping companies, a dacha in Crimea, all purchased with stolen funds." "And Nadine?" Severin paused by the window, his reflection ghostly against the storm-dark glass. "Smaller payments, monthly stipends above her official salary, jewelry, a private apartment near the Nevsky." He looked back at Anna. "She has been his mistress for 6 years. The revelation should have surprised her. Instead, it merely added another layer of corruption to the portrait she was assembling. Nadine had sold not only her colleague, but her body for advancement. "We have enough to destroy them both," Anna said quietly. "Why do I feel so empty?" "Because destruction alone was never your true goal." She looked up at him sharply. "What do you mean?" "I mean that you want more than their ruin." Severin crossed to her desk, leaning close enough that she could smell his cologne mingled with tobacco smoke. "You want them to understand. You want them to know who brought them down and why. Anonymous destruction would be too merciful." He was right. The thought of Karenin and Nadine facing disgrace without knowing the face of their destroyer felt hollow as an empty stage. "There is something else," Severin continued. "Something I have not yet told you." "What?" He withdrew an envelope from his coat, placing it before her with the delicacy of someone handling explosive materials. "This arrived yesterday, from a former stagehand named Petrov. He was present the night your platform was sabotaged." Anna's heart seized. "I thought all the witnesses were dead." "Most are. But Petrov emigrated to America shortly after your accident. He has been living in New York for 7 years, tormented by guilt. When he heard that someone was investigating Karenin, he reached out through intermediaries." She opened the envelope with trembling fingers. Inside was a letter, written in rough Russian, the handwriting of a man unaccustomed to the pen. The letter described everything. How Karenin had paid the stagehand Volkov to weaken the platform supports. How Nadine had provided the exact timing, ensuring the collapse would occur during Anna's grand entrance. How Petrov had watched from the wings, too frightened to intervene. And at the bottom, a single sentence that changed everything. Volkov did not die in a tavern brawl. I saw Karenin's men follow him that night. They killed him to ensure his silence.
Murder, Anna whispered. Not just attempted murder of me. Actual murder.
The evidence is circumstantial. Severin's voice was tight, but combined with everything else, it paints a damning picture. Anna set the letter down carefully, as if it might shatter at rough handling. We cannot take this to the police. Karenin has friends everywhere. No, but we can take it to the newspapers, to the public, to every person who ever admired the Imperial Theater.
When?
That depends. Severin straightened, his dark eyes meeting hers. There is a gala next month, the premiere of the new Sleeping Beauty production. Every important person in Petersburg will attend, including several government ministers and foreign dignitaries. If we time our revelation correctly, the scandal will be impossible to suppress. Anna rose from her chair, crossing to the window where the storm still raged. Her reflection stared back at her. A dark figure framed by lightning. I want to confront them myself. That would be dangerous. I know. She turned to face him. But I did not spend 5 years becoming someone else only to hide behind lawyers and journalists. I want to see their faces when they realize who I am. Severin was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. There may be a way. The next morning, Anna summoned Director Karenin to her residence. He arrived precisely at 11, his carriage fighting through snowdrifts that had transformed the streets into white canyons. She received him in the formal parlor, seated beside a roaring fire, her veil firmly in place. Madame Vorontsova, he began, settling into the offered chair with poorly disguised nervousness. Your message mentioned urgent matters regarding the theater's future. Indeed, Anna gestured for tea to be served. I have completed my review of the accounts. His face tightened almost imperceptibly. And what have you found? Irregularities. Anna accepted a cup from her maid, waiting until the girl had withdrawn before continuing. Significant irregularities that require explanation. I am certain any discrepancies are merely clerical errors. Our accountant is somewhat elderly, his eyesight not what it once was. The discrepancies total nearly 200,000 rubles, Director. She let the number hang in the air. That is rather more than poor eyesight can excuse. Karenin's hand trembled slightly as he raised his own cup. Perhaps we might discuss this more privately. We are quite private here. I mean, without the servants listening at doors, without written records. He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a near whisper. Surely a woman of your sophistication understands that institutions like the Imperial Theater require certain flexibility in their accounting. Flexibility. Expenses that cannot be publicly acknowledged. Payments that must remain discreet. He spread his hands in a gesture of worldly understanding. The arts have always required patronage that operates beyond official channels.
Anna set down her cup with a sharp click. You speak of bribes, Director.
I speak of realities.
And what reality requires the murder of a stagehand named Volkov? The blood drained from Karenin's face so completely that for a moment Anna thought he might faint.
His teacup clattered against its saucer, spilling dark liquid across his immaculate trousers. I do not know what you mean.
I think you do. Anna rose, crossing to stand before the fireplace, her back to the flames. I think you know exactly what I mean, just as you know what happened to Anna Veresova 7 years ago.
The dancer?
His voice had become a croak.
She fell. An accident.
Was it?
Of course. The platform collapsed. A tragic mechanical failure.
Strange. Anna turned to face him, her hands clasped before her like a judge pronouncing sentence. I have testimony from a witness who says the platform was deliberately sabotaged, that you paid a man to weaken the supports, that Nadine Lanskaya provided the timing. Lies! Karenin stumbled to his feet, his composure finally shattered. Whoever told you this is lying. I demand to know who makes such accusations. You are in no position to demand anything, Director. I have powerful friends, ministers, princes.
You have no idea who you are threatening. Anna stepped closer, close enough to smell his fear beneath the cologne.
I know exactly who I am threatening. And I know exactly who I am. She reached up and lifted the veil from her face. For 7 years she had dreamed of this moment, had rehearsed it in mirrors, imagined it in sleepless nights. But nothing had prepared her for the pure satisfaction of watching Victor Karenin recognize the ghost he had tried to create. His mouth opened, closed, opened again.
Impossible, he breathed. You are dead.
I am very much alive. Anna smiled, a cold baring of teeth. Though I understand why you might prefer otherwise.
Veresova.
He stumbled backward, nearly falling over the chair behind him.
How? The hospital said your leg, your career, everything was ruined.
Everything except my memory and my patience.
Karenin's eyes darted to the door, calculating his chances of escape. Anna saw the calculation and laughed. Run if you wish. It will make no difference. I have copies of every incriminating document in this city and 3 others. I have testimony from witnesses you thought silenced. I have evidence of every crime you have committed for the past decade. Running will only make the scandal more entertaining. What do you want?
His voice had become a whine, all pretense of dignity abandoned.
Money? I can pay. Name your price.
My price is not money.
Then what?
Anna reached into her sleeve and withdrew a single sheet of paper. She unfolded it slowly, deliberately, savoring his mounting terror. Your resignation, Director. Effective immediately. A full written confession of your crimes, to be published in every major newspaper in Petersburg. And a public apology to the memory of Anna Veresova,
acknowledging that her fall was no accident.
You are mad.
He shook his head violently. No one will believe you. A bitter former dancer against the director of the Imperial Theater. Society will side with me.
Society will side with evidence, and I have more evidence than you can possibly imagine. She pressed the paper into his hands. "You have until the premiere of Sleeping Beauty to comply. If I do not receive your signed confession by then, everything I know will be delivered to the authorities, the press, and every salon in Petersburg simultaneously." Karenin stared at the paper as if it were a death warrant, which in many ways it was. "And if I refuse?" "Then I will destroy you slowly instead of quickly." Anna replaced her veil, becoming once again the mysterious Madame Vorontsova. "The choice is yours." She rang for the maid to show him out. At the parlor door he paused, looking back at her with something that might have been admiration beneath the hatred. "You have changed." Verasova. Death will do that to a person. When he was gone, Anna sank into the nearest chair, her hands shaking uncontrollably. The confrontation had drained her more than she expected. For 7 years, she had imagined this moment as triumphant. Instead, she felt only exhaustion and a strange, hollow sadness. Severin emerged from the adjoining room where he had listened to everything. "It is done," he said quietly. "Yes." Anna looked up at him, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "But somehow, it does not feel finished." "Because it is not." He knelt beside her chair, taking her trembling hands in his scarred ones. Karenin was only half the equation. "Nadine. She still needs to face her own reckoning." Anna nodded slowly. The storm had passed outside, leaving the world wrapped in fresh, white silence. But inside her chest, another storm was just beginning to build. Nadine Lanskaya received the summons 3 days after Karenin's disgrace became public.
The newspapers had erupted like a volcanic spring. "Director of Imperial Theater exposed as embezzler," screamed the headlines. "Prominent ballerina implicated in financial scandal." Anonymous sources revealed decade of corruption. Every salon buzzed with delicious horror. Every tea table groaned beneath the weight of speculation. Karenin had fled to his dacha in Crimea, but police intercepted him at the Sevastopol station. His arrest photograph appeared in the evening editions, showing a broken man with hollow eyes and rumpled clothing. Now it was Nadine's turn. The note arrived at her apartment on Nevsky Prospect, delivered by a silent footman in black livery. The handwriting was elegant, feminine, utterly unfamiliar. "Madame Lanskaya, we have matters to discuss regarding your future. Come to the address below at midnight. Come alone. Your career depends upon your discretion." There was no signature, only an address near the abandoned Yusupov warehouse district. Nadine should have been suspicious, should have brought protection, should have fled Petersburg like her disgraced lover. Instead, vanity and desperation drove her into the winter night. The warehouse loomed against the sky like a sleeping beast. Broken windows gaped like empty eye sockets. Ice hung from rusted gutters in frozen waterfalls. The only light came from a single lamp burning in an upper window. Nadine climbed the creaking stairs, her fur coat gathered tight against the cold, her heart hammering beneath her corset. Each step echoed through the empty building like a countdown. The door at the top stood ajar, spilling warm golden light into the corridor. She pushed it open and stepped inside. The room had been transformed. Candles blazed from every surface, their flames reflected in dozens of mirrors arranged along the walls. The mirrors created an infinite regression of images, Nadine's white face multiplied into 1,000 frightened ghosts.
And in the center of the room, seated on a throne-like chair draped in black velvet, waited Madame Vorontsova. "You came," the veiled woman said. "I was not certain you would. Your note mentioned my career." Nadine's voice trembled despite her efforts at composure. "I assume you wish to discuss the scandal?" "In a manner of speaking." "I had nothing to do with Karenin's crimes. The newspapers exaggerate. I was merely his employee, not his accomplice." "Is that so?" "Yes."
Nadine straightened her spine, summoning the arrogance that had sustained her for 7 years.
"I am a victim in this affair, not a perpetrator. Whatever evidence you think you have against me is fabricated."
Interesting.
Vorontsova rose from her chair, moving with a grace that seemed somehow familiar.
Then perhaps you can explain these.
She gestured toward a small table where documents lay spread like accusations. Nadine approached cautiously, her eyes scanning the papers. Bank statements showing deposits far exceeding her salary. Letters in her own handwriting discussing the elimination of obstacles.
A telegram dated the night before Anna Verisova's fall, containing a single word: tomorrow.
"Where did you get these?" Nadine whispered.
Sources have many ways of revealing themselves.
Vorontsova circled her slowly, the silver cane tapping against the wooden floor. "Did you know that guilt makes people careless? They keep evidence they should destroy. They trust servants they should silence. They assume their crimes will remain buried forever. This proves nothing. On the contrary, it proves everything." Vorontsova stopped directly behind her, close enough that Nadine could feel breath against her neck. "It proves that you conspired with Karenin to sabotage a fellow dancer. It proves that you knew the platform would collapse. It proves that you watched from the wings while Anna Verisova shattered her leg and her future. She was in my way." The words escaped before Nadine could stop them. She had everything: the roles, the praise,
the adoration. She never had to fight for anything in her life. And that justified destroying her? I did not destroy her. The fall did. Nadine spun to face her accuser, fury replacing fear. I merely removed an obstacle. It is what we do in this world. The strong survive. The weak fall. Anna Verisova was weak.
Was she? Vorontsova reached up and slowly lifted her veil. The candlelight caught Anna's face, illuminating the changes 7 years had wrought. The softness of youth had hardened into something sharper. The eyes that had once sparkled with innocent joy now burned with cold fire. The mouth that had smiled so easily was set in a line of implacable purpose. But it was unmistakably her.
Nadine's scream echoed through the empty warehouse, bouncing off the mirrors until it seemed 1,000 women were shrieking in terror.
"Impossible." She stumbled backward, nearly falling over a chair. "You are dead. The hospital said you would never walk again." "As you can see, I walk quite well." Anna advanced slowly, her cane striking the floor like a metronome. "Though I confess the winters are difficult. My leg aches when the weather turns cold. Every storm is a reminder of what you took from me." "Stay away." Nadine backed toward the door, her hands raised defensively. "I will scream. Someone will hear." "Scream all you wish. This building has been abandoned for years. We are quite alone." "What do you want? Money? I have money. I can pay." "Karenin offered me money too." Anna smiled, a terrible expression without warmth. I refused. Some debts cannot be settled with currency. Then what? Nadine's back hit the closed door. What could you possibly want that I can give you? The truth.
Spoken aloud, acknowledged. Anna stopped an arm's length away. I want to hear you say what you did. Not to papers, not to police. To me. And if I refuse? Then these documents go to the authorities tonight. Tomorrow, you will be arrested. Within a week, you will join Karenin in prison. Anna paused. But if you confess to me now, here, I will give you a choice. Nadine's chest heaved with panicked breaths. The mirrors reflected her terror from every angle, trapping her in an infinity of fear. What choice? Exile or exposure. Confess to me, and I will give you 24 hours to leave Russia. You will never dance professionally again. You will never return to Petersburg. But you will be free. That is no choice at all. It is more than you gave me. The silence stretched between them like a tightrope. Somewhere in the distance, a church bell tolled midnight. Each stroke seemed to count down the seconds of Nadine's former life. I did it, she finally whispered. I told Karenin when to have the platform weakened. I chose the exact moment in the choreography when you would be most vulnerable. Why? Because I hated you. Nadine's face contorted with old rage. You never appreciated what you had. You danced like it was effortless, like the gods had blessed you at birth. While I practiced until my feet bled, you floated across the stage like a dream. And that was a crime worthy of death? I did not mean for you to die, just to fall, just to be broken enough that you would never dance again. Tears streamed down Nadine's painted cheeks. But watching you lying there on the stage, your leg bent at that terrible angle, I felt nothing but satisfaction. Does that make me a monster? It makes you human. Anna's voice was unexpectedly quiet. A terrible, jealous, desperate human. So you understand? I understand the impulse. Anna raised her cane, letting the silver swan catch the candlelight. I have felt jealousy. I have felt rage. But I never tried to murder someone because they had what I wanted. What will you do to me? Anna studied her former colleague, seeing for the first time the brittle creature beneath the prima ballerina's armor. Nadine was 42 years old, her best years behind her beauty fading, her talent diminished. 7 years ago, she had seemed like a titan. Now she looked merely pathetic. I told you, exile or exposure. Choose. And if I choose exile? You leave tonight. There is a train to Warsaw at 3 in the morning. From there, you can travel anywhere except Russia. I will know if you try to return. Nadine wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, smearing coal across her cheeks like bruises. You have become something frightening, Anna Veresova. You made me this way. And does it feel good, being frightening, being powerful? Anna considered the question. In all her dreams of revenge, she had imagined this moment as triumphant, the villain exposed, the victim vindicated, justice served. Instead, she felt only a vast emptiness. Like a theater after the audience has gone home. It feels necessary, she said finally.
That is all." Nadine laughed, a brittle sound edged with hysteria. "Necessary, yes. Everything we do is necessary, is it not? Necessary to survive, necessary to succeed, necessary to destroy those who threaten us." She moved toward the door, her hand on the handle. "You think you are different from me, Anna. You think your vengeance is righteous, while my ambition was corrupt. But we are the same. Both of us willing to destroy to get what we want." "Perhaps." Anna watched her former rival with something approaching pity. "But I never betrayed someone who trusted me. I never watched a friend fall and felt satisfaction." "No." Nadine opened the door, pausing on the threshold. "You just waited 7 years to do the same thing more slowly." She disappeared into the darkness of the corridor. Anna listened to her footsteps descending the stairs, then the distant sound of a carriage door closing.
Then silence. She stood alone in the candlelit room, surrounded by mirrors that reflected her solitary figure into infinity. A woman in black, leaning on a silver cane, her face finally exposed to the empty air. The church bells had stopped tolling. Somewhere across the city, Karenin sat in a prison cell awaiting trial. Somewhere a train was preparing to carry Nadine into permanent exile. The empire Anna had built from shadows was beginning to collapse around her enemies. She had won. But Nadine's final words echoed in her mind like a curse. "You think you are different from me. We are the same." Were they? Anna extinguished the candles one by one, letting darkness reclaim the warehouse. The mirrors became black pools reflecting nothing. The cold crept in through the broken windows. Tomorrow, she would return to being Madame Vorontsova. Tomorrow, she would continue dismantling what remained of Karenin's corrupt network. Tomorrow, she would begin the slow work of rebuilding the theater she had loved. But tonight, standing alone in the darkness, she allowed herself to wonder if the woman she had become was worth the price she had paid. The premiere of Sleeping Beauty arrived on a March evening when Petersburg trembled on the edge of spring. Ice still clogged the Neva, but the air carried a softness that hinted at thaw. Carriages lined Teatralnia Square in an endless procession of lacquered wood and polished brass. The Imperial Theater blazed with light, every window glowing like a lantern against the violet dusk. Anna descended from her carriage without assistance, her silver cane striking the cobblestones with measured precision. Tonight she wore crimson instead of black. A deliberate choice that had set the dressmakers whispering. The Vorontsova widow was emerging from mourning at last, but the veil remained. The foyer swallowed her in warmth and noise. Champagne flowed like water. Diamonds sparkled at every throat. The cream of Petersburg society had gathered to witness the theater's resurrection under its mysterious new patron. Madame Vorontsova. The voice belonged to Prince Mikhail Obolensky, the newly appointed chairman of the theater board. He was tall, silver-haired, impeccably dressed, his manner suggesting centuries of aristocratic breeding. "Your Highness," Anna inclined her head, "I trust the preparations meet your approval." They exceed it. He offered his arm to escort her toward the private boxes. "The new production is spectacular. The company has never performed better. You have worked miracles." "Miracles require faith. I merely provided resources." "You provided much more than that." Obolensky lowered his voice as they climbed the marble staircase. The scandal could have destroyed this institution. Karenin's arrest, Lanskaya's flight, the revelations of corruption stretching back a decade. Lesser theaters have collapsed under smaller scandals. The theater survives because the art transcends its administrators. Perhaps, but art requires patronage, and your patronage has been extraordinarily generous. They reached the doors of the principal box. Obolensky paused, his expression growing serious. "There is something I must tell you before the performance begins." "Yes?" "The company has voted to dedicate tonight's premiere to the memory of Anna Verisova." He watched her carefully through the words. "The dancer who fell on this very stage 7 years ago. Several of the older performers remember her fondly. They believe her spirit deserves recognition." Anna's heart seized beneath her crimson bodice. "A touching gesture?" "I thought you should know." He opened the door to the box. "Some say her ghost still haunts these corridors, that she watches performances from the shadows, waiting for justice." "Do you believe in ghosts, Your Highness?" "I believe in the persistence of memory," Obolensky smiled. "And I believe that some debts cannot be settled even by death." The box overlooked the stage with perfect clarity. Anna settled into the velvet chair, her gaze sweeping across the familiar geography of her former kingdom. The orchestra pit where musicians tuned their instruments, the curtain that would soon rise on enchanted forests and sleeping princesses, the boards where she had danced and fallen and died a little death. Severin appeared at her elbow, materializing from the shadows like smoke. "Everything is prepared," he murmured. "The documentation has been distributed to every major newspaper. Tomorrow morning, the full truth will be published." "Including the evidence about Volkov's murder?" "Including everything." He settled into the chair beside her. "Karenin will face capital charges. His supporters will scatter like frightened mice." "And the theater?" "Will emerge purified. New management, new company structure, new commitment to artistic integrity." He paused. "Your influence will be recognized publicly for the first time." Anna felt the weight of his words settle around her shoulders like a mantle. "After tonight, Madame Vorontsova ceases to exist." "Yes." Severin turned to study her profile. "After tonight, you must decide who you wish to become." The lights dimmed before she could respond. The orchestra swelled with the opening strains of Tchaikovsky. The curtain rose on a painted kingdom where princesses slept for 100 years and love conquered all curses. Anna watched the dancers move through their enchanted paces, memories rising unbidden. She remembered learning this same choreography as a young student, her body drinking in the movements like water. She remembered performing it as a soloist, then as principal, each role bringing her closer to the ultimate prize. She remembered Nadine watching from the wings, her eyes burning with jealousy. The production was exquisite. The new prima, a young dancer named Ekaterina Sokolova, moved with technical brilliance and genuine emotion. She had been discovered in Moscow, untainted by the corruption that had poisoned Petersburg's ballet world. In her, Anna saw echoes of her own youthful promise. But watching Ekaterina spin through Aurora's variations, Anna felt something unexpected. Not jealousy, not bitterness. Relief. The art continued. The beauty survived. Whatever had been stolen from her, this remained, passing from generation to generation like a sacred flame. Intermission brought champagne and congratulations. Anna received guests in her box, accepting praise with gracious words she barely heard. Her mind wandered through the corridors of memory, retracing steps she had not taken in 7 years. When the second act began, she slipped from the box unnoticed. The backstage corridors were dim and dusty, unchanged by time or scandal. Anna moved through them with the certainty of someone navigating their own bloodstream. Past the costume workshops where seamstresses labored over silk and tulle. Past the rehearsal rooms where mirrors reflected empty spaces. Past the door to the dressing room that had once been hers. She paused there, her hand on the worn handle. The room belonged to a Katerina now. Fresh flowers crowded the vanity. Photographs of family lined the walls. A pair of new point shoes hung from a hook, waiting to be broken in. But in the corner, someone had placed an old photograph in a silver frame. Anna crossed to examine it, her breath catching in her throat. The image showed a young dancer in Giselle's white costume, her face radiant with joy, her arms extended as if embracing the entire world. It was Anna Vereshcheva at 23, captured in the moment before her destruction. Someone had written in the margin, "In memory of the brightest star this stage has ever known." Tears blurred her vision. "I thought you might come here." The voice belonged to Severin. He stood in the doorway, his scarred face gentle in the lamplight. "She kept the photograph," Anna whispered. "Ekaterina. She kept my memory alive." Many people did. He crossed to stand beside her. The scandal revealed more than corruption. It revealed how beloved you were, how mourned, how missed. I was so angry. For so many years I thought only of vengeance. Anger kept you alive. He placed his hand over hers on the silver frame. It gave you purpose when despair would have claimed you. And now? Now you have a choice to make. Anna looked at the photograph, at the radiant young woman she had once been. 7 years of exile had transformed her into someone else entirely. The question was whether she wished to remain that someone or attempt to reclaim what she had lost. "My leg healed," she said slowly. "The surgeons in Paris were brilliant. I can walk without pain now, without the cane if I choose." "But can you dance?" "I do not know." She turned to face him. "I have not tried. I was so focused on destruction that I never considered construction." "Perhaps it is time to find out." The sound of applause filtered through the walls. The second act was ending. Soon the final act would begin, building toward Aurora's awakening and her triumphant wedding. "There is a studio," Anna said, "on the 3rd floor, empty at this hour." "I know." "Will you come with me?" "If you wish." They climbed the stairs together, leaving behind the noise and light of the performance. The studio waited in darkness, its mirrors reflecting moonlight from the high windows. Anna found the lamp by memory and lit it, filling the room with warm, golden glow. The bar stretched along one wall like an old friend. The floor showed the scuffs and scratches of countless dancers who had labored here before her. The air smelled of rosin and wood and something indefinable, the perfume of dedicated effort. Anna removed her crimson gown, revealing the simple practice clothes she had worn beneath. Her body remembered this space, these proportions, this quality of light. She took her position at the bar. For a long moment, she simply stood there, feeling the familiar stretch of muscles, the alignment of spine and shoulders, the grounding of weight through her core. Then, slowly, she began to move. Simple exercises at first, pliés and tendus, the fundamental vocabulary of ballet. Her body complained at movements it had not made in 7 years. Her injured leg protested at demands it had forgotten how to meet. But gradually, certainty returned. The muscles remembered their purpose. The joints found their proper angles. The coordination that had once been effortless began to reassert itself. Anna moved from the bar to center floor. She rose onto point, wobbled, steadied herself. Took a step, then another. Found her balance, lost it, found it again. And then she began to dance. Not Aurora's variations or Giselle's mad scene. Nothing choreographed or rehearsed. Simply movement, pure and instinctive, rising from somewhere deep within her body's memory. Severin watched from the doorway, his expression unreadable. The dance continued for several minutes. Anna turned and leaped and stretched, testing limits she had not approached in 7 years. Her leg burned with effort. Her lungs struggled to supply adequate breath. Her heart pounded with exertion. And something else. Joy. The feeling was so unexpected, so foreign after years of cold determination, that it nearly brought her to the floor. She was dancing. After everything she had suffered, after everything she had done, after becoming someone barely recognizable as the woman she had once been, she was dancing, and it felt like coming home. Spring arrived in Petersburg like a long-delayed confession, sudden and overwhelming. The Neva shed its armor of ice in thunderous crashes that echoed through the city for days. Crocuses pushed through the softening earth along the summer garden paths. The air lost its cruel edge, replacing the bite of winter with the gentle breath of renewal. Anna stood at the window of her study on the English embankment, watching boats return to the newly liberated waters. 3 months had passed since the premiere of Sleeping Beauty. 3 months since she had danced alone in the moonlit studio. 3 months since the newspapers had exploded with revelations that shattered the old order of the Imperial Theater forever. Karenin awaited trial for embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy to commit murder. The evidence Petrov had provided from America, combined with the documents Anna had accumulated, had proven sufficient to secure capital charges. His powerful friends had abandoned him like rats fleeing a sinking vessel. His name had become synonymous with corruption and betrayal. Nadine had disappeared into the anonymous depths of Western Europe. Rumors placed her variously in Vienna, Paris, and Rome, teaching private lessons to wealthy amateurs, her glory days reduced to fading photographs and bitter memories. She would never dance professionally again. The revenge Anna had planned for 7 years was complete, and now she faced the question that had haunted her since that night in the empty studio. What comes after vengeance? "You have a visitor." Severin's voice interrupted her contemplation. She turned to find him standing in the doorway, his expression carefully neutral. "Who?" "Prince Obolensky. He says it is urgent." The prince entered with his usual aristocratic grace, but Anna detected tension in his shoulders, uncertainty in his eyes. He declined the offered chair, preferring to stand by the fireplace where spring sunlight battled the lingering chill. "Madame Vorontsova," he began, then stopped himself. "Forgive me. That name no longer applies, does it?" "You know who I am." "I suspected from the beginning," he smiled wryly. "Your interest in the theater was too specific,
too passionate to be merely financial. And your knowledge of its inner workings exceeded what any outside investor could possess.
Yet you said nothing.
I had no reason to interfere with justice. Obolensky moved to the window,
gazing out at the same view Anna had been contemplating. Karenin deserved exposure. Lanskaya deserved exile. The institution deserved purification. Your methods were unconventional, but your cause was righteous.
You did not come here to discuss my methods.
No. He turned to face her directly. I came to make you an offer. Anna waited, her expression revealing nothing. The board has voted unanimously to invite you back, Obolensky continued. Not as patron or investor, as artistic director of the Imperial Ballet. The words hung in the air like musical notes awaiting resolution.
You want me to lead the company I once belonged to.
We want you to transform it. Obolensky's voice gained intensity. You understand this institution from the inside. You know its strengths and weaknesses, its potential and its failures. You have the artistic vision to guide it toward greatness and the administrative skill to protect it from corruption.
I am damaged goods, Prince.
A former dancer with a ruined career and a reputation for vengeance. You are a survivor. He stepped closer, his aristocratic reserve giving way to genuine passion. You are proof that determination can overcome any obstacle. What better symbol for a theater rising from scandal than a woman who rose from destruction? Anna moved to the piano that stood in the corner of the study, her fingers trailing across the polished wood. She had not played in years, but she remembered the feel of keys beneath her hands, the way music could express what words could not.
What would this position require of me?
Everything. Obolensky joined her by the piano.
Your time, your energy, your expertise. You would oversee casting, production design, choreographic choices, company development. You would be responsible for hundreds of dancers, musicians, technicians, administrators.
And my dancing?
That would be your choice. He paused delicately. Some directors continue to perform.
Others prefer to focus entirely on leadership. We would support whatever decision you made. Anna pressed a single key, letting the note fade into silence.
I tried dancing again, she said quietly, in the studio during the premiere. My leg held, my body remembered, but something was different.
Different how?
Before, I danced to prove myself, to earn love, admiration, validation. Every performance was a test I had to pass.
She pressed another key, then another, forming a simple chord.
Now when I dance, I feel no need to prove anything. The movement is enough. The art is enough.
Perhaps that is the sign of true mastery.
Or perhaps it is the sign that my performing days are truly over.
She turned to face him.
When I was young, I danced because I could not imagine doing anything else. After the fall, I survived because vengeance gave me purpose. Now both of those driving forces are gone.
And what remains? Anna considered the question.
Through the window, she could see the Neva flowing toward the Gulf of Finland, carrying the last fragments of winter ice toward the open sea. Ships were departing and arriving, each one bearing passengers toward unknown destinations. When I confronted Nadine, she told me something that has haunted me ever since. She said we were the same, both willing to destroy to get what we wanted. And do you believe that? I believe there is truth in it. Anna's voice was steady, but her hands trembled slightly. I became something cold and calculating in pursuit of justice. I manipulated people, threatened them, brought them to ruin. I told myself it was righteous, but was it really so different from what Nadine did to me? The difference, Obolensky said gently, is that she acted from jealousy and greed. You acted from the need for justice. The methods may have resembled each other, but the motivations were worlds apart. Does motivation excuse behavior? No, but it contextualizes it. He placed his hand over hers on the piano. You were wronged terribly, and you fought back. The fact that you question your own actions shows that you retained your conscience even through the darkest times. The spring light shifted as clouds passed across the sun, casting the room into momentary shadow before brightness returned. If I accept your offer, Anna said slowly, I want to make changes. What kind of changes? Structural ones. No more allowing directors absolute power over dancers' careers. No more tolerance for the petty cruelties that have always plagued our profession. She straightened her spine, and for a moment Obolensky could see the prima ballerina she had once been. I want to create a company where talent is nurtured, not exploited, where young dancers are protected from predators like Karenin, where art serves beauty rather than ego. That would require a complete transformation of how things have always been done. Yes, the old guard will resist. Let them. Anna smiled, and the expression transformed her face from mask to living woman. I have spent 7 years learning how to overcome resistance. I think I can manage a few hidebound administrators. Obolensky laughed, the sound warm and genuine. You accept, then? I need time to consider. One more night, at least. Of course. He moved toward the door, then paused. Whatever you decide, Anna Veresova, I want you to know that your presence has already changed everything. The mere fact that you survived, that you returned, that you fought for justice, has given hope to everyone who ever suffered in silence. After he departed, Anna remained at the piano for a long time. Severin appeared at sunset, bringing tea and the day's correspondence. He settled into his customary chair, his scarred hands wrapped around a steaming cup, his dark eyes watching her with the patience that had defined their partnership from the beginning. You heard? Anna asked. Every word. What do you think I should do? I think, he said carefully, that you have spent 7 years defining yourself by what was done to you. Perhaps it is time to define yourself by what you choose to do. And if I choose wrong? Then you choose again. He set down his cup, leaning forward with unusual intensity. The woman who fell on that stage 7 years ago is gone, Anna. She cannot be resurrected. But the woman you have become is remarkable in her own right. Perhaps more remarkable than the original ever could have been. Because suffering built character? Because you transformed suffering into purpose. He rose, crossing to stand beside her. Most people are destroyed by what you endured. You were refined by it, purified, forged into something stronger than mere talent ever could have created. Anna looked up at him, seeing for the first time the depth of feeling in his expression. You have been with me through everything, Severin.
Paris, the training, the planning, the execution. Why?
Because I recognized something in you. He touched her face gently, his scarred fingers tracing the line of her cheek. A fire that refuses to be extinguished, a beauty that transcends physical form, a spirit that cannot be broken, only bent.
And now?
Now I hope you will let me continue beside you, whatever path you choose.
The next morning, Anna sent word to Prince Obolensky accepting the position. 2 weeks later, she walked through the doors of the Imperial Theater not as patron or investor or vengeful ghost,
but as artistic director. The corridors that had once witnessed her destruction now welcomed her return. The stage where she had fallen awaited her transformation. She did not dance in the premiere season. Instead, she watched from the wings as Ekaterina Sokolova blazed across the stage in roles that had once belonged to Anna herself. She felt no jealousy, only pride in the young woman's development under her guidance. But late at night, when the theater stood empty and silent, she would sometimes climb to the moonlit studio on the 3rd floor. There, alone with her memories and her scars, she would dance. Not for audiences or critics or rivals, not to prove anything to anyone, simply because the music still lived within her, and the movement still brought joy, and the art that had nearly killed her had also, in the end, saved her life. The ghost of Anna Vereshova had finally found peace, and in her place stood someone new, someone forged from tragedy and tempered by time. Someone who had learned that vengeance is a beginning, not an end, and that the truest victory is not destroying your enemies, but building something beautiful from the ashes of destruction. The curtain had fallen on one story, another was just beginning to rise.